Labor Talks was John DeRosier, recorded at Chippewa Valley Community Television in Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Good day. It is my honor to introduce County Board Supervisor Colleen Bates. She represents District 12 on the Eau Claire County Board. This is a return visit for Colleen, which makes this a double your pleasure visit. Colleen, welcome to Labor Talks.
Thank you,
Good
John.
to see you.
Good to be back.
And let's see now. Are you still on the county's administrative committee?
Yes.
You're still the chair of the Human Services Board?
Indeed.
And are you still on the building committee, the Joint Commission on Shared Services Initiatives, the UW Extension Education Committee, and the West Central Wisconsin Counties Consortium Board of Commissioners?
Yes, I still have those responsibilities.
And my next question is, what do you do in your spare time?
Well, a lot of other things as well.
Such as appearing on Labor Talks.
Indeed.
Okay. Now, I do have a few questions for you, as usual. And let's see here. Given Governor Walker's alleged presidential ambitions, do you think his strategy is still to use wedge issues to divide and conquer?
Yes, I think that's part of the strategy, but right now I believe he's concentrating significantly on drawing in a specific population to support his run for the presidency. I think a lot of what we would hope that he would concentrate on in the state of Wisconsin and the issues in regard to the budget in particular are numerous. Don't seem to be his top agenda item. Many of those issues involve how individuals that are working class people are able to, will be able to thrive in the state of Wisconsin.
Okay, and that's your total answer?
Sure.
Oh, okay.
I could go on, John.
I know, and we appreciate that. I really do.
Thank you.
The Joint Finance Committee toured Wisconsin, as you well know. You were at their hearing up in Rice Lake.
Correct.
You and County Board Supervisor Jim Dunning were there.
Correct.
And let's see. The Joint Finance Committee had about 6 public hearings. And do you think the feedback that this committee received had an effect on the Joint Finance Committee's decisions, especially regarding IRIS?
If you talk about IRIS specifically, the program that's made to give individuals that have significant disabilities more independence in their homes, I think that basically that program is still at risk. As we speak now, and within the next few days, I have no doubt that issue is likely to be resolved. The biggest issue is really a march, if you will, towards changing long-term care as we've known it in the state of Wisconsin. That particular effort involves now bringing family care into every single county in the state, which I don't think anyone will disagree is a good idea. But basically that may be a preparation for what they're hoping to accomplish next. And that is that the family care program in the state of Wisconsin would go away, as would IRIS to some extent. Mm-hmm. And those responsibilities would be turned over to a private provider, a large concern like United Healthcare or Aurora or some of the others that can offer statewide services.
So they could be making decisions that will affect lower income people in the long run.
Definitely. I think part of our concern in the area of human services is that basically the IRIS program in family care has offered a great deal of help to individuals. 85% of the people who come to family care for help are not on the taxpayer's dollar. They're just older individuals that need help in determining what their care package should look like. Of the other group that makes up the other 15%, for those folks, this particular move to a private entity, and we suspect could be significantly more expensive, plus which it won't take into consideration local concerns.
Now, has the county board been forced to reduce benefits for the disabled or low-income people? This is just a repeat question, but has the
Yes,
county board
to
been
some
forced to do
extent,
that?
yes. We have less dollars to work with, and so we've had to figure out how to do things differently. Certainly, if we looked at that long-term care program in particular, many of the things that people had that were considered beneficial to them have been changed. And part of that was the state's mandate, more or less, to say, we're not going to address wants, we're going to address needs.
Mm-hmm.
And their view of wants and needs are significantly different than the people who are trying to get along in their homes. So that very well changed the plan for many, many people.
That's what we pretty much expected, isn't it?
It is. It's sort of like when we looked at the issue of long-term care, we're always looking to say, how can we really not only make sure that people get the things they need to have some quality of life, but how can we do it in a fashion that basically is done with dignity?
Now, this is a little bit out of your realm, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. But I understand that there is a livable, sustainable wage, a prevailing wage, and I understand that that the state legislature, if they haven't already, they intend to get rid of it. Do you have any knowledge about that?
The only thing I know is as of yesterday, there was still significant discussion going on. I have no doubt that that's going to look different than it does right now. But how much of a change there will be as to whether or not it will simply go away, I don't know. And I don't think that the Joint Finance Committee, as of today, has made that commitment, has made that decision.
So it's possible that the wage could be reduced, or could the provision could be eliminated completely?
Yes, I think that's correct. I think there definitely will be changes, and right now we don't exactly know what those changes are going to be. And how that, it's sort of like with all things. It's interesting that people think that perhaps businesses are in favor of this, but certainly all businesses are not. Many of them are supporting keeping the law exactly as it is.
We've spoken with some businessmen, and they echoed the very thing that you just said.
Right.
So perhaps our friends down in Madison should be listening to folks like you and to business people as well, employers, etc.
Well, those hearings that you talked about, certainly there were a lot of folks there in every one of the locations. And I do think that the hearings had some impacts on the decisions that have been made thus far. Certainly the cuts to the university, that has been changed. It's probably for most of us still too high, but nevertheless that has been changed. I'm still very concerned about some of the other things that impact our education system. There does seem to be a move to go back to better funding for our K through 12 programs. And all of those things, even though I serve in county government, impact the quality of life in your communities. Those are the building blocks that make people ready for work. And if we don't provide those building blocks, indeed we have great difficulties when it comes to folks going on to their more technical training or their university training.
Yeah, this is not one of the questions listed here, but as long as we're talking about education, or you mentioned education, one of the things that upsets me is that public education was cut by $300 million. And now we're being told that the legislature is doing us a favor by restoring $50 million, which means that the cut is only $250 million. And I don't think they're doing us any favors by just restoring the $50 million. It might be a better idea, and I'm sure I'm editorializing right now, but it's my show, so I'll say what I want. Okay. They're not doing us a favor by just restoring the $50 million. They could restore the full $300 million. Those are my thoughts anyway.
Yes, and I think they could do that quite easily if they accepted the Medicaid funding. The federal Medicaid funding would have been $315 million. That certainly would have not only paid for the state's portion of that care, but basically would have loosened up money to be able to fund the university. So it seems as though we're not really taking steps forward with this budget. We're really sliding backwards. There isn't anyone in the state of Wisconsin who doesn't want to see our children thrive. I don't believe that. And I really think that for us to think that that's a solution to our problems, it certainly isn't. Even the cuts that they made and talked about $5 coming off your property tax. $5 at whose expense?
$5. That sure is going to help me out an awful lot. Voucher schools. Do you think that the money that's going from public schools to voucher schools, do you think that might be responsible for that $300 million cut or $250 million cut?
Undoubtedly, it's going a lot of different places, and certainly that could be one of them. But basically, for many individuals, I'm a very firm supporter of public education. And basically, whenever you take money away from public schools and place it elsewhere, those schools are not stronger, they're weaker. And we found that especially true in rural areas. So to take $150 for each student in rural areas and place it elsewhere doesn't seem logical to most of us that support public education.
In effect, what's happening is that if you have the voucher schools and the public schools, we're supporting two school systems.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
And many of the individuals that use those vouchers were already in private schools, already in parochial schools, and had been paying their own bills. So this is not necessarily based on need.
Now, Eau Claire County, we know that it's going to be experiencing some reduced revenues, correct?
Yes, we still have a zero-based budget.
Okay. Now, will Eau Claire County, will it go the route of referendums to bring in more money?
You know, we have performance-based budgeting,
Mm-hmm.
as you well know. And I believe that basically we will find ways to be able to continue to do the good work we do without necessarily going to a referendum. Mm-hmm. But if it came to the point where really we felt as though there was significant damage by not funding a specific program, I think that there would be a move to consider a referendum. I'm not feeling that's the case right now, mm-hmm. but certainly over time it could be.
So as of right now, it appears strongly that Eau Claire County will be able to stay within its zero-based budget.
I think that of confidence that the individuals that work within our county government have been exceedingly innovative in regard to making things work when things become really, really tight, when our finances become tight.
Now, by staying within budget, however, does that mean that services provided by Eau Claire County could be reduced?
There's no question that that is exactly what does happen. We really and truly find ourselves in a position where we try hard to be sure that services aren't changed greatly, but obviously you can't do the same type of complete job with less workers, mm-hmm. with less revenue. And it's been a balancing act between sometimes increasing fees, sometimes looking for partners in the community, and God bless our community. They have been absolutely wonderful in partnering with us in so many things. I think a really recent example of that is the Confluence Project. Certainly, no matter where you stand on that issue, you have to say it's an absolutely excellent example of what people can do when government, private sector, and citizenry work together.
I take it both of us are strong supporters of the Confluence Project.
I think that basically it's going to be a real barn burner for downtown Eau Claire. You're going to see that area completely different in a matter of 5-6 years.
And that leads me to two questions, off script. So if you don't want to answer the questions, fine. I'll just break down and cry right here on camera in front of everybody, okay?
Sure.
All right. Were you surprised that the Joint Finance Committee shot down the $50 million that was scheduled or slated for the Confluence Project? What was your reaction to that?
I think actually there was a great effort on the part of businesses, on the part of the community, on the part of the economic development folks, to show them that this wasn't just a frivolous thing. It's really a win-win situation. It's also a model for what can happen elsewhere when you have a community that works together to make things happen. Mm-hmm. Why would you want to put such a negative pale on that? I think obviously that's exactly what they'd like to see happen in tight budgets. They'd like to see communities step up and play a more active role. Mm-hmm. All right, this community did that. So for them to not recognize that and not do their share to support it, I think would have been a huge mistake.
You were surprised?
I was surprised in the sense that sometimes it turns out that when a governor supports something, it bends people's arms, and I think he did support that. Mm-hmm. I was surprised when they said they weren't going to support it. But basically for them to come back and I think listen, they were listening to the voices coming from our area, and I think it changed their minds. There was a lot of hard work done to make that happen.
I think it became pretty obvious. You know, when you take a look at the politics of it, the referendum, the overwhelming support for the Confluence Project, and then when the Joint Finance Committee eliminated the $50 million, they got a real negative feedback. I know, because I saw some of it. Mm-hmm. And I think that had an influence in restoring that $15 million. Well,
another factor is that basically legislators locally on both sides of the aisle stepped up to the plate and really also spoke in favor of it. And wouldn't we love to see more of that? Wouldn't we love to see more of them in other issues, not just the Confluence Project? Really look for logical solutions to community problems.
I agree. We need more cooperation. We simply do.
Absolutely.
What, if anything, have Act 10 and the Right to Work law done to benefit Eau Claire County? What, if anything? Take your time.
I really have to think on that. I honestly think that this has not been a real good step forward. It's made people who work in almost any sector of government feel less valued. I think it makes them feel less secure in their jobs. I think we're seeing people who may be worried about their retirement package during the recession now use this as an opportunity to step out. And there's no question that Wisconsin will have a workforce shortage. The question is, are we going to still be the place where people want to work? And basically, this will be a contributing factor in their making that decision. Part of that shows up in the fact that we have less young people going into teaching. Mm-hmm. That's worrisome. That's worrisome. So we need to value our public workers, no matter what sector they happen to be in. Most of them are really hardworking, good people, and our communities don't run without them. So to really make them seem like they're the bad guys, to me, is not really a good step.
I've talked to people in business, on school boards, county boards, and they all echo the same thing, the very same thing. And part of the problem is that we are not keeping, we are not attracting skilled labor. We're losing. They're going over to Minnesota. So they're echoing the very thing that you just said.
It's a matter of public record. When we recently replaced our county administrator, we did a nationwide search.
Mm-hmm.
We had 27 candidates.
Yep.
And that to me is not indicative of not only the fact that this was a really well-paying job in a community that certainly is a leader in the state of Wisconsin, but it's an indicator to me of how people are viewing our state. And obviously we want to be there. We want to be one of the top states in the United States, not finding ourselves in a position where people think twice about coming for our top jobs.
Now, we have a new county administrator. Mr. McCarty is a big shoes to fill. He
True.
did an excellent job.
True.
Now, what are your comments about the new administrator?
Well, you know, again, the proof will be in the pudding,
Mm-hmm.
but we felt very comfortable in making this hire. I think that that the individual that's going to be taking his position is a person coming out of Sauk County,
Mm-hmm.
and a woman,
Yes.
and very bright, no question
Yes.
in my mind that she is exactly that. I think people will find her amiable. I think she's very community-minded. And hopefully we're not going to have too much of an even bump in the road when she begins. I think she'll have a learning curve, but there's no question in my mind that basically she will be able to do that job.
I've talked to different people on the county board, and it's my understanding that she will play a proactive role as far as having concern for the county employees. That's the feeling I get.
I think she'll be fair.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't that what we want? You know, we want individuals that come in with an open mind and that basically are fair to our employees. We don't want to obviously struggle with employees that are not adequate. And obviously I think that'll be part of the job, is to look and see and supervise all those department heads.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had the good fortune of having absolutely excellent people. And I think, again, that is not likely to change. I think she'll be a good person in that role.
She will not be one of those people who will not have one iota of concern for the county employees.
No, I don't believe that at all. I think she will be an individual that really has concern about a county that works well. And you can't have that without building a real good relationship with the individuals that you work with.
I can live with that.
Thank you.
I can really live with that. And these are questions that I simply have to ask, you know. Now, as you know, we do have some fun on this show.
Oh, really?
Once in a while we do that. So I'm going to ask you a question, and it's this. Are you now, or have you ever been, a Minnesota Vikings fan?
Oh, my word. My son lives in Minneapolis. His wife is a Minnesotan, and they have in the front of their house a flag that has a division. Half of it's Packer and half of it's Viking.
Okay.
As for my home and where I live in the state of Wisconsin, there's no question in my mind. I'd only have to have one flag, and that would be a Packer flag.
Well, you know, we try here. Now, are there any questions that I should have asked that you want me to ask, or anything
well, John,
that you would like to add?
We live in kind of precarious times. I don't think there's any question about that. And I think we have many really enormous concerns on almost every level of government. Our job is going to be as citizens to watch closely, to become involved as citizens, and in particular, to vote.
Go ahead.
I think again, often people feel that they don't have any power. They really do. In their communities, if you look at some of the things that have happened over the last number of years here in Eau Claire, civic engagement through the Clearwater process, and listening to people and making strategies to make our communities stronger. And there's opportunity to serve on committees in almost both city and county government to become involved. There's opportunities in nonprofits all over our community to be a part of your community. And I think we will be what we determine to be. If we sit back and say we have no power, then basically our community will not thrive. The power that we have in Eau Claire County is through its active citizenship. Let's not ever forget that.
Yeah, I learned, and I don't know if this pertains just to West Central Wisconsin or statewide, but only 14% of the electorate voted. That frightens me. That really, really does frighten me. Yeah.
And it should, and especially with young people. A recent report indicated they had no interest whatsoever in becoming involved in government or running for government. And really and truly, some of our best and brightest are who we need to attract to be in these jobs. Somehow we have to continue to work on a lot of different things, and certainly getting money out of politics, in my opinion, is one of the things we ought to be concerned about. We really and truly are at a point where every working Joe, every person, should have the responsibility of saying, what do I want my community to look like, and how do I participate in that?
You have always been a fountain of wisdom, and I greatly appreciate that. I really do. But sadly enough, our time with Colleen has expired. My thanks to Colleen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Appreciate being here.
And my thanks to our viewing audience who make this program possible. Now, just a reminder, Labor Talks can be seen on channel 993 every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. and every Saturday at 12:30 p.m. And we're also on YouTube. All you have to do is Google YouTube and Labor Talks, and there we are, big as life. Thank you very much.
Chippewa Valley Community Television is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, you can contact us by calling 715-839-5067 or on the web at www.cbctv.org.